morning and welcome to Stratford. I brought you today to a stretch just above Stratford town called the Lido. It's a really popular stretch of the Avon, this day ticket water. One of the first venues where I started out with my fishing when I was a youngster. My dad used to bring me here. We used to like float fish then, catch lots of small fish, gudgeon, dace, odd roach and chub. But it's always a nice day out and you always had lots of bites here. What I'm intending to do today is just fish a stick float, which is probably the purest form of angling really for a river guy who's fished rivers most of their life. Nearly everyone will have started out with a stick float. This particular peg I'm fishing today is 3 or 4 foot deep. I'll be fishing small sticks and I'll be fishing 2 lines, one around off the rod tip and one towards the middle. A simple approach, strung out rigs and just feed maggots. I'm expecting to have quite a good day. Last week this river was bank high, it was over the banks here after the heavy storms we had. Now it's dropped back down in the banks. It's probably about 6 to 8 inches on with a nice tinge of colour. It really has got a good winter trim on it, so it's looking nice. So I'm expecting quite a good day today. So let's show you through the kit I'll be using and how I'm going to go about approaching this swim. Okay, let's have a look at some tackle. I'm going to be fishing stick float today, and I'm going to be selecting a hardwood base float, which is, some would call this lignum. Whether it is I don't know, but it's a hard based wood, fairly heavy base, and I can actually cast that to the middle of the river if I want to. But I can also fish it close in, so it's a very versatile float. The swim I've chosen isn't boily, it's a very smooth flowing peg, but there is pace on it. This float would be perfectly adequate for today. It's a nice fine tip, so it'd be good for bite registration. And I'll be able to spread the shots out and actually see the fall of the shots on this, especially the last number 9. You'll actually see that register. You'll be able to pick up bites if a fish has intercepted the bait before it's hit bottom. I'll be able to see all those delicate variations in the peg. Other types of float I may have considered today. If the peg had been boily, I may have chose a wire stem float with a slightly thicker tip. These are good for pacey shallow swims. Another type may have been something with a shoulder, again a hardwood bottom but shouldered. I'm not expecting to have to hold the float back today, because that's predominantly what that shoulder's for. It's to hold the float back and let it run. So you'd be looking to present a bait at probably half the pace of the river with a shouldered float such as this lignum. I always carry a wide range of sticks with me. So should conditions change throughout the day, I've always got an option there at hand to change to the conditions. Now what we do now is I actually put my floats onto winders. I make these rigs up at home. The float I'm going to use today, as I say, is a 6 number 4 hard based, heavy base float. It's versatile, as I mentioned. I can fish it from off the rod tip right the way to through the middle of the river if I want to. And I've got 2 of those. I always put 2 floats on one winder. Should I tangle one up or break off, always keep the other one at hand so I can actually put the same rig on, so I can change it efficiently and quickly if I'm in a match or I haven't got much time. It's all ready and done. I remember years ago we actually used to make the floats up on the bank. That'd take quite a while, but then we probably only set 2 rods up back then. It's nothing now to set 5 or 6 options up, so you just haven't got the time to set these rigs up on the bank any longer. So you know, matches now are often won in the prep room, and this is part of the discipline of having a good range of floats ready made on winders, ready to go. So I've got a couple of options here. I've got an alloy stem stick float, which is 6 number 4, and also my own 6 number 4 heavy base float. So those are made up and ready. Hook wise, I'll be going with a traditional choices of hooks. I like to use on the Avon Camasan B520 and B510. I find that there's a real mix of species on this river. You could be catching anything from Dace right the way through to big chub, and obviously there's a lot of perch now in here, so I could be encountering any species, and I find the best all-round hooks for that's probably the B520, and I'll be tying those today to a 0.8 bottom, which in old money was about £3/4 but in the modern lines that's about £1.5, £2 breaking strain with modern materials. B560s, I've got some of those tied up. Should there be a lot of just roach in the peg, I'll probably go for a 560 in size 18. It's a nice wide gape hook. I find that these hold on to roach better than any other pattern I'm running line. But as I say, I'll be starting on the B520 size 20. Okay, I'm just going to show you how I attach the rigs off the winders. So the first thing I do is I take the main line from the reel. In this case it's a 0.14 main line, 0.14, so it's only a light line, as light as you can buy it really now for this sort of application. So I tie a figure of 8 loop into my main line. Always wet the knot. Take my rig and find the loop. And just push the winder through the loop. There are other ways of doing it. You can tie an overend knot onto there or join the two pieces of line. I found this to be the strongest application. So I've hooked big fish in the past with just an overhand knot above the float, and I've actually lost everything before now when I've hooked big fish. This I very rarely lose a big fish when attaching it this way. I can just reel that off. There, that's ready. As you can see, I've pinned out this shot. It's all number 8s strung out all the way down the rig. So number 8s are around about 3 inches apart, but as I go down the rig they become separated further. So they start off 2 inches, then 3 inches, then down to 4, 5, 6 inches. So it's what's called a tapered shotting pattern. The float itself is attached with just 2 rubbers. Now I know some people do use 3. I've never really bothered, because if that rubber breaks, I can just put another winder on. I think in the days when we made the rigs up, like I say, on the bank, you would put another piece of silicone in the centre of the float as insurance, but there's really no need for that, and I think that the less silicone on this float the better. It shots more accurately, then there's less interference, so I like to fish it, as I say, 2 pieces of silicone, the bottom piece protruding slightly over the end of the float. You can see that there. That helps reduce tangles and wrap overs. And I always have, and the mistake I see is people don't fish the top silicone close enough to the tip of the float. And I always cut a thin piece, not a thick piece. So it's a thin piece of silicone, and always out close to the float. You don't want it down here, that's no good. It causes the line to sink behind the float. You want it right just below the band, just there. Attach a hook length, pre-tied hook lengths. These are on 30 centimetres, so the hook of choice today, B520, 0.8. Start on this hook, see how I get on. There are some big bonus fish here who can always, but I'm pretty confident that'll deal with anything I hook today. Just talk to you about my reel choice today. This is quite an old reel actually. They're Shimano Aero matches, the original, well, one of the early models. Now the reason I like this reel is the line lay is absolutely superior to anything else I've ever fished with over the years. Now when you're fishing at point 14, you want as little resistance as possible. Now the only way you get as little resistance is with good line lay from the spool. These are quite long spools on this. They don't make reels like this now. I've got a few of these, and I've had them a long time, probably 15-20 years now. I really do take care of these, send them away regularly to be serviced. I don't use them all the time, just situations like today where I'm going to be fishing fine main line. It's my go-to choice. The rod as well, the rod is a tri-cast splice tip rod. It's 15 foot. It's a very soft action rod in the tip. It will deal with anything from a tiny dace up to, I've landed quite a few barbel on this rod as well, but it will be quite adequate for fishing these 20 hooks. Some rods are too stiff to fish 0.8 bottoms and 20 hooks, so that's the reason I choose this setup. It's very versatile in the fact that I can land fish from small right the way to big fish. Just plumbing the depth up now. If I remember right, there's about 5 foot deep these pegs. Not far off, it's probably about 6 foot there. And I'm going to be fishing that, barely touching bottom. Just about touching bottom today. Now if the water was colder I may think about putting more line on bottom. I don't think I'm going to need to today. I think that the fish, it's warm enough at the moment, the fish will actually still be chasing the bait. And I think they'll probably start coming up in the water today as I feed. Always just plumb the depth a little bit down the peg, always wait and see what's there. You never know, it may shelve up. But you'll learn a lot more about the peg as you start running the float through the day. You'll find out where the little undulations are, where it lifts up and drop-offs and stuff like that. And you'll have a pattern of where you're getting the bites. But like I say, today I'm expecting the fish to start coming up really when I'm feeding. So I'm fishing, just tripping bottom, but you know, it wouldn't bother me to come a foot off bottom if I need to, or lay more line on if it's more difficult than I expect it to be. Start the day with single maggot, so a single yellow maggot on that 20 hook. Fish with singles to begin with. You can always start fishing double. 1, 2. The pace is beautiful in this peg, absolutely beautiful. See straight away it's just perfect. I'm just loose feeding by hand at the moment. First chuck. The bite, first run through, nip maggot. That's a good sign. say, this float's actually shotted up with, it's a 6 number 4 float, but it's actually shotted up with 16 number 8s all spread out. At the moment I'm letting that just run through at the pace of the current. I'm keeping the line tight to the float, which is important. But I'm not holding it back, I'm just letting it run through. I'm expecting these fish to intercept the bait. Just the same pace as the current. So I'm feeding a dozen maggots, twice the chuck. So I want to keep a constant flow of bait going through the peg. Don't want to just feed a handful of maggots and then run through 10 or 15 times. I want to feed little and often all the time. Gets the fish moving around the peg more, gets them competing more. This is shelving up just down where I feel I'm going to catch fish. It's actually shelving up more than I thought, so I can actually take some depth off. 6 inches off that. I've had a bite there, look. Another little tweak. So I've had 2 bites, which is good. Keep feeding a few maggots, and then pull that stick float back into the feed, and then let it run down with the feed. And always keep the line as tight as you can. It's quite important, that. First fish of the day, which was a tiny dace. So I've just bought maggots with me today, and there's a reason for that. The roach on the Avon, they do like hemp, but I'm not intending to fish hemp today. Hence I'm not going to feed any. Because what I don't want to do is have the roach preoccupied on hemp when I'm fishing maggot, so I'm just not going to introduce any hemp at all. Now if it's on a match it'd be different, I'd have to feed hemp because people would be feeding hemp around me. But when you're just pleasure fishing, I don't see the point in feeding something I'm not intending fishing. And as I say, these roach in the Avon, they do tend to become preoccupied on hemp seed. Once you start feeding hemp, that's all they'll feed on. And you end up fishing hemp on the pole, usually in matches. What you'll notice, always feed slightly downstream. Feed downstream, then just pull my rig into the feed and keep a tight line. But try and let that float go through at the pace of the current. Don't really want to hold it back, just keep the line tight. moment it's a fish most runs through, and certainly to bite every run through. Some small dace, one perch and a couple of small roach, and one decent roach. I'd like to pick out a few of those better roach, but I think that'll be persistent feeding, feed off the small fish. I've got 4 pints of maggot with me today, which is a fair bit for the Avon really, but I'm expecting to get through most of that today. And these little fish are ravenous. There's Dace nearly every run through. Beautiful fishing. Probably, you know, it's fishing in its purest form, running the stick float. That's what we, you know, that's how most of us river anglers were brought up. Stick floats and wagglers, maybe some bigger topper floats occasionally. But when I first started fishing, this is all there was. In most matches you set up 1 or 2 rods. I think in some ways the amount of kit we've got now just takes some of the fun out of fishing. You've got to carry a lot of stuff to your peg all the time, setting lots of things up. Some days, you know, isn't it nice to just come down and just set 1 rod up like this and just be catching fish like this. So these fish are definitely well up in the water now. I mean, I've come up, reduced my depth by 8 inches since I've started fishing, and some of these fish I'm able to use a disgorger on, which is another sign that I could be fishing a little bit too deep still. Some double maggot on there, but I'll take a bit more depth off again. Another 4 or 5 inches. Now fishing over a foot off bottom. Definitely finding double maggots better. Picking up just a slightly bigger dace on double maggot. Perch. Well, I've been fishing 2 hours now, and it's really been better than I thought. I've had quite a few small roach, continued to catch dace, and I've had 1 or 2 better perch. So it's been definitely productive. But fishing a stick float like this, I'm able to search the peg. So if I was fishing pole, I'd only be really just exploring the few foot of water in front of me. But with a stick float, you can search down the peg, and I've caught these better perch just off the back of the feed. I'm sure if I'd have been fishing pole, I'd have probably been fishing over ground bait or bait droppered it, and they'd have moved in. But it is interesting that you actually work the river more with a stick float. You actually work the swim more and you cover more ground with it. So in a way it's a lot more interesting, certainly more straightforward, and especially when you've got paths close to the riverbank like I have here. I wouldn't want to be really pushing a pole over that when it's busy, but you know, this is just a great way of coming out and spending a few hours with minimal kit. And it's nice to actually come out and have a simplistic day's fishing, especially as a match angler when you're used to setting everything up. This is great fun. So I've continued to feed 20-30 maggots every run through. There's been no danger of overfeeding at that level. I've had to still continue to have a bite nearly every run through. I don't know if I touched upon them, using an 014 main line, which is quite delicate, but it's a floating line, which is nice. Floats up, so it keeps me in control of the float. I've not got sinking line at the back of the float, which can be a bit of a nuisance. Sometimes I will treat the line. It depends what brand of line I'm using. If I'm using Maxima, which is a reliable big fish line, really, I use that when I'm expecting big fish. I will have to treat that to get it to float, but this is a dedicated floating line, so I don't have to have any problem of greasing it up. Perch. It's a foul look fish. I thought that was actually quite a big fish, but it's a foul looker. It's a dace hooked in the tail. Sometimes when you've got a lot of dace in the peg, you do foul look a lot. As I mentioned earlier, I've had to come up off bottom to avoid foul looking fish like that. It's turned into a really nice day. The sun's just starting to come out now. Couldn't ask for a better autumn day. River running down after being over the banks only a week ago. You wouldn't have got near this. The water was back in the field. But the Avon does run off quickly. You can just catch it in these conditions where it's dropping. I mean, this has cleaned out all the weed. There's hardly any weed left in the river because it was quite a big flood for the Avon. It's done it the power of good. These days, as I say, steady all day, with the odd perch and the odd better roach amongst them. I'm sticking with that 20 hook. I'd probably catch on an 18 today, but I'm sticking with this size 20. I think that's it. These days it's easy to sometimes fish a bit too heavy. I think a lot of anglers have almost forgot the art of fishing a bit lighter now, because we're so used to fishing heavy gear, trying to make the best of hooking bonus fish, especially if you're a 7 angler or a Y angler. I mean, I fish the Y a fair bit, and I can't remember the last time I put a hook on this small actually.
I've done fishing as well. Yeah. Anything that could endanger other animals, yeah. We should be working together. Yeah, but at least spread around.
That's a very big perch. That's a bonus fish on a day like today. Beautiful perch, well over a pound. That's on that 20 hook to 0.8. So as long as the tackle's balanced, you can land bonus fish. That's a fed maggot today. I've kept feeding little and often. So 20 or 30 maggots have gone through there every single run through. And I'm starting to reap the benefits of that now, because I'm starting to get some bonus fish, like that big perch. I've had a couple of others similar size, and the dace are actually getting a bit bigger as well, with the odd roach. They're much bigger than they were earlier on. That's the importance really of fishing the stick float, is keep feeding steady all the time, don't stop feeding. Then you get fish competing through the layers. Once fish are competing, they're easier to catch. So nearly every run through today I've had a bite. It's not always like that, it's not always this good. Like I say, I used to fish the Avon a fair bit. I thought I'd just come today and run you through the basics of stick float fishing. And I think, yeah, it is a forgotten art. If you walk along a match length now, you won't see many people using it. But there are days when it can pay dividends. Perch. These are real weight builders. But today's been the perfect day really. Been fairly quiet. Weather's been nice, weather's been kind. Wind's been non-existent, so it really has been, couldn't have ordered better conditions to fish. And of course the river just being a foot up with that little bit of colour has really made it perfect to fish the stick float today. So I've caught fish really from the go today. I don't think I've run through the swim without getting a bite. Double maggot now. Try and single out a few of those slightly better fish. Just really worked one line today, which is unusual. Normally would have to search around the peg a bit more than I've done today. But them are the best days really, when everything just goes right. Solid with these days. It's good to see these days in the Avon. Seems to be an improving river. The results at Evesham this last couple of years have been a lot better. Certainly a river which is holding up at the moment when you hear so much bad press about polluted waterways and stuff. This river's fishing better now than it has for a few years. I've continued to feed 20-30 maggots every cast, which is a lot of bait really. It's a lot of bait for the Avon. Won't always be that good. Only today's just got better and better. Quite a few dace this size. This is a bigger cock dace, probably 3 ounces that one. This style of fishing's addictive. Can't wait to get on the bank and get the stick float right out again. Definitely something we're not doing enough of these days. Good mixture of year classes today. Little dace, half ounce up to 3 ounces. Small perch, bigger perch. Same with roach. I've had roach from a couple of ounces up to 12 ounce. It's a sign of a really healthy venue. I've catch a lot of chublets along here today. I've actually only had 2. There's quite a lot of small chub, ½ pound, 12 ounces. Haven't really showed today. Guess another day that might catch more of those as the weather gets cooler. Roach. Actually moved up to a size 18 hook as well. I was missing a few too many bites on the 20. A slightly bigger hook on. Make it fold over. Important thing when you fish the stick float, as I say, I've mentioned it before, is just to keep that trickle of feed going in all the time. Get fish competing, constantly brings fresh fish into the peg. Beautiful. Beautiful. You can complain about catching dace like that. Beautiful. Careless. Ah, first one of them I've hooked a pike. I wonder if we'll get this out. Does happen, it's the first one I've hooked. There's quite a few bigger dace then queuing up, and that is obviously wants to get in on the act. I wasn't expecting to get that out, so got the hook back, as unusual. Straight back out. To go quiet now, up that pike. Got a little bit quiet since I've hooked that pike, to be expected. And the fish regain the confidence. These fish have been very hungry. I use the disgorger a lot today, even moving up off bottom, because I know they're coming up to intercept the bait. Spell at the moment where single maggot seems to be the best. Again. Pike went after him again. That pike's been quite active at the moment. Well, today's session's drawing to a close now. I've been fishing 4 hours. It's been pretty good. I've certainly got big double figures of Dace, Roach and Perch. I've got my way through around about 3 pints of bait today. Those are ABC yellow maggots. There's a few reds in there as well. Caught on a mixture of single maggot and a few fish on double maggots this last hour or so. I've had some better perch and stuff on double maggot. Fabulous mixed bag of silvers. Some big perch, cracking dace and a few quality roach. all on the stick float.